Hey everyone, I'm Mariana and I am back with the second part of my June wrap-up. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I watched in June. If you missed my last video, that was my reading wrap-up for June and I will link that down in the info box below. But today is all about TV and movies. Starting with the TV shows, of course, I finished American Gods. If you haven't seen my review of season 1, I will link it down below along with any other reviews that I have for the stuff that I'm talking about. But yeah, finished watching American Gods, really enjoyed it, even though I did have some issues with it. If you want my more detailed thoughts on season 1, check out the video that I posted recently. I also watched the entirety of The Keepers, which is a Netflix documentary series, and that was really good. If you enjoy stuff like Making a Murderer or The Jinx, I think you would definitely enjoy this one as well. It's about a murder of a nun in the 60s. The case was unsolved back then, but they are bringing it back right now because some people have come forward. It is kind of a tough watch for a big portion of it because a lot of this has to do with sexual assault, but in general, I thought it was a very interesting documentary series and I would highly recommend it. I also ended up watching the entirety of The Handmaid's Tale, which is a Hulu original series that is based on the famous Margaret Atwood novel. I am going to have to do a review for this separately, so I'm not going to talk about it in detail, not like I talk about anything in detail in these wrap-ups, but I really loved this series. And if I were to recommend one TV show out of all of the ones that I've watched in June, it would definitely be The Handmaid's Tale. It is beautifully done. It is very powerful. The cast is amazing, and I actually enjoyed it a little bit more than the novel, and the novel is great. The last show that I finished in June was Legion. If you remember, I started that I think in April or May. I think it was April, and I kind of got distracted, but I finished it in June and it was really good. I am somebody who is definitely being hit by superhero fatigue, so originally, I wasn't really going to watch Legion, but then I heard it was different and that it was quite excellent and a little bit weird, and I gave it a shot, and I'm so glad I did because this is, first of all, a standalone show. You don't need to watch 5 other things from the cinematic universe to enjoy it. You can just start right there. I am somebody who didn't know anything about Legion going into this, and it totally worked for me. What makes Legion so interesting is that it is not your typical superhero story. This guy is a really powerful telepath, but he also has severe mental problems, and he is an issue for everybody who is around him. And that's not something that is done a lot. At least I don't see a lot of it when it comes to superhero movies and superhero shows. And it also didn't have your traditional villain really in this series. So if you are tired of superhero shows, but you are willing to give something different a shot within that whole genre, then I would definitely suggest giving Legion a try. It wasn't a perfect season. It did have some issues with pacing and kind of being a little bit repetitive throughout, but I generally really enjoyed it. If I were to rate it, I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. Do you like how I didn't rate anything until this, but now I decided to rate this? If I were to rate these things, I would give American Gods 4 out of 5, which if you've seen my video, you know already. The Keepers would also be 4 out of 5, maybe 4.5 out of 5 even. The Handmaid's Tale, easily 5 out of 5. All of the stars, and then Legion, as I mentioned, 4 out of 5. Moving on to Letterboxd, so we can actually take a look at all the movies that I watched in June. The month started off strongly with Wonder Woman. If you've seen my review, you know I really enjoyed that film. Check it out if you haven't already. Then I watched The Housemade, which was a really strange Korean melodrama. I thought the cinematography was beautiful. It's definitely a really well shot film. film, and there is some good acting, but the pacing and the storytelling are just way off. I didn't really enjoy this very much. I thought it was kind of average overall. It is a remake of a 1960 film under the same name, I believe, so if you've seen that, let me know if it's worth checking out. But as far as this one goes, I think you can easily skip it. Then I watched The Island, actually the same day, and no, not the Michael Bay The Island. This is a different film. It's a Russian film, semi-recent from 2006, and this was a very interesting and thought-provoking experience. The entire film is set in a desolate Russian Orthodox monastery in northern Russia, and it is about this monk who others believe has some powers to heal and to exorcise demons and to potentially see the future. This is the kind of film that is very interesting to analyze because there's a lot to dig into there. It actually reminded me of Tarkovsky's work. If you're familiar with him, he is one of the greatest Russian directors, and in this particular movie, it's kind of like a parable about humanity and religion and guilt and all of that. I don't really want to spoil anything, but just know that if you're looking for an intellectual, filled with symbolism film that demands your full attention, The Island is definitely something to check out. It is pretty grim, but I feel like that kind of goes along with the territory. Then I rewatched another Russian film. This one is from the 80s, Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears. This is a very famous classic if you are from anywhere within the former Soviet Union, and it is actually a film that won an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film at some point. I believe it was 1981. This is a life story of this woman from youth to her older years and how she kind of has to deal with some decisions that she made that maybe were not the best decisions. It also follows her friends, and it is a very heartfelt and interesting drama. There are some things in there that feel a little bit dated, and I mean thematically, not just visuals, but overall I think it's a very enjoyable film if you're looking to watch some older foreign language stuff. Then I went to see It Comes at Night, and I do have a review of that as well. Check it out if you haven't. Thought it was a very interesting thriller. After that, went to see My Cousin Rachel, and if you've seen my book wrap-up, you know that I really enjoyed the book. Sadly, the movie was not as good. I thought the performances were good and it was generally beautifully shot, but the editing was so strange and the story just didn't flow at all. So I wouldn't really recommend it unless you really love Rachel Weisz, who is fantastic as Rachel, but the characters just don't work as well as they do in the book because you're missing a lot of the inner monologue, so I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Then another movie that I reviewed is Raw. Finally watched Raw. This is a French horror film that has to do with cannibalism and coming of age. I would highly recommend it. One of my favorite films of the year at the moment, so check out my review if you haven't seen it yet, and definitely check out Raw. Krisha is a film that nearly destroyed me. This is the same director who did It Comes at Night, Trey Edward Schultz, and he did a fantastic job with this movie. This is a very low-budget independent film. I do believe this is his first film, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. If you are in any way familiar with addiction and people who struggle with addiction, this movie is just going to hit home so hard. It is very emotional, very powerful. I would absolutely recommend it. It is a tough film to watch, but I think it's an important one to watch. But then again, I would never watch this again just for my own sanity. I thought this was wonderful and clearly a very personal story for the director, so check out this brilliant film and then be sad with me. Then for something completely different, Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, which is a short film by Max Landis. I randomly watched this on YouTube and this was really entertaining, and I don't even like wrestling, but Max Landis just knows how to tell a story, and all of the wrestlers here are shown as women and they're over the top, and the drama of it is really, really entertaining. Definitely check it out, whether or not you like wrestling. It's just a fun little short film. I think it's 20 minutes or so, so it's not gonna take up too much of your time. After that, I rewatched Ganguro. I love this movie. I think it's one of David Fincher's best, and I do have a review of this on my channel, but it is really, really old. It is one of my first videos that I made, so if you are going to watch it, don't judge me too hard because I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, if you haven't seen Ganguro, I don't know what you're doing because it's a wonderful mystery thriller. Also, rewatched another favorite, Brooklyn, which is a completely different type of thing. This was one of my favorite films of 2015. It's a wonderful story for anybody who has ever left home and felt homesick. It also has a great romance in it. Not cheesy, not ridiculous, not like you're watching a Nicholas Sparks movie or anything. It's just a very beautiful and charming and heartfelt film. And once again, I do have a review, so check it out if you haven't. After that, I watched The Monster, which I wasn't a big fan of, as you can tell. I'm trying to go through all of the A24 films, so this was one of them, and I decided to watch it, and it just did not work for me. I think it's one of their worst movies, to be honest. Reading the premise for this film sounds more exciting than the movie itself, because theoretically, this is a film about this young mother with her 10-year-old kid stuck in the middle of nowhere, and they encounter a monster and odd things start happening. But in reality, this film tries to be this metaphor for something else, and it just doesn't work. I get what they were trying to do with it, but in this case, it just did not work out. So 2 out of 5 stars. Easily skip it. Then I went to see Baby Driver, which was so much fun. If you've seen my review, you know I loved this movie. It is probably my favorite film of the year at the moment, so check out my review, check out Baby Driver. It is great. After that, I watched one of my most anticipated films of the year, Okja, and I'm sad to say that this did not really work for me as well as I wished it would. I love other Bong Joon-ho films, but I feel like this one is just way too preachy. The tone is all over the place. Jake Gyllenhaal's performance is flat out terrible, which it just pains me to say because I love Jake Gyllenhaal. This is about this genetically modified giant pig and the girl who raised him and an evil corporation, and it's just, as I mentioned, it's a little bit too preachy for my taste. And also the characters in this movie are just so one-dimensional. They are just tools for moving the plot forward, and I just don't enjoy stuff like that. It's not a bad movie. There were a few things that I enjoyed about it, and it is beautifully shot, but it's just quite disappointing for me because I was really looking forward to this, and I just can't give it more than 3 out of 5. The last film that I saw in June was The Beguiled. This is directed by Sofia Coppola, and it's actually a remake of a 70s film starring Clint Eastwood, except we have Colin Farrell instead of Clint Eastwood in this one. I am kind of in a hit or miss situation with Sofia Coppola's films, and this one definitely was not a hit for me. I find a lot of her films to be a bit too surface, and that was definitely the case with The Beguiled for me. I thought it was beautifully shot. It's just so atmospheric, and the cinematography is stunning. The performances are really good, especially from Kirsten Dunst and Nicole Kidman and Colin Farrell. But it was kind of like a really beautiful shell that just lacks any kind of richness or depth. It was a very slow burning melodrama that could have done so much more, but instead just didn't. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5. I know people are loving this movie for some reason, but I feel like it is a bit style over substance. That's it for my June movie and TV wrap up. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of you have seen at least some of these movies and shows, so let's discuss. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!